So in the previous lesson, we were focusing on the basics of character construction, and the character that we were drawing for your initial activity was of a certain type. So just to recall, we were working with a character that was around 5 heads high. 1 head, 2 heads, 3 heads. Let me erase that. 3 heads, 4 heads, 5 heads. And like what we mentioned in that previous video, you can play around with the proportions of this basic armature or modified stick figure. You could make it taller, you could widen the shoulders, you could narrow the hips, you could basically do whatever you want as long as you're sticking to the basic armature. Now, of course, when it comes to animals, that's a totally different thing altogether. But and that will not be covered by this course. But the principles of drawing animals and non-human creatures are pretty much the same because they all have an armature. So it's a matter, if you want to get into that, then that's something that you would have to explore on your own. But for now, we're working with this. You have the opportunity to actually modify the armature and create basically anything, any proportion that you want. So let's say that we're working with this character. Then when you're making your pillow, then you would just be adjusting that. You would be following basically where the shoulder width is and where the width of the pelvic area is. So, and then your pillow will be will match. So for example, if I do this character in isometric, so again, we'll go for our basic axes. And I would want this character to be facing here. Then it's a matter now of estimation as to like how you're going to divide things here. So if I'm going to do that, my character is facing this way, follow the axis, wide, follow the axis again, narrow, bring it down, follow this axis for the direction of the foot. Now, when it comes to like, how do you know if you got the proportions right? So generally speaking, because you are the one who is designing the character, you should more or less be able to monitor for yourself whether or not you're going in the right direction. And this is all eyeballing now. Especially when you start to pose the character, what you don't want to do is, for example, you have this character and then you pose this character in a certain way. You would have to eyeball whether or not that pose, the proportions of the pose more or less resembles what you created. So going back here to our armature, I'm now going to do that pillow. And then I'm going to get to the center right there. I'm not following the center axis. I want to thicken that up a bit. Round this at the side. More flat at the center. Round it over here. Again, round at the side. More flat forward. Then round it there. Socket for the arm. The other socket can't be seen. And I'm just going to do my cylinders. And we'll just expand that hand, making it bigger. Same thing here at the bottom. At this pelvic area, I'm just going to add the slots for the legs, bring it down, allocate those areas for the knees, and here we have we've built that character with a different set of proportions. Now you might be asking, what if we wanted to do like thicker arms or maybe larger legs? Then it's your choice how you're going to go about that, as long as you're sticking to proper construction. So for this character, for instance, I'm going to enlarge him a bit. I'm not doing it in proportion to this, so that you'll see what's going on. Basic axes, height. Character is facing this way, so now I'm going to have that large head. Armature, narrow shoulders, wider hips, legs going down. Follow this axis for the feet, then armature right there. Just making sure that this is level. There we go. So now, if I'm going to volumize that, neck, add the pillow, round at the side, flat, sort of flat in the front, round at the side, sort of flat in the front. Bring this center line down, and then add the slots for the legs. So when it comes to the slots for the legs, you can make this as big as this, in which case the legs will be this thick, or you can have smaller slots so that your legs will be wire thin. It's up to you. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to thicken the legs a bit. I can go this way, and take note, this slot on the other side, it goes around this way. So the leg actually starts here. It doesn't start here. So again, take note where those slots actually are, even if they're like covered by a volume. So I have that. Smoothen this out. And you can even enlarge the feet. So I'm going to enlarge that foot over here, and enlarge that foot over here. Contour, knee. There we go. Now for the arms, if I want to enlarge those arms, I'm just going to have to enlarge those sockets. And now we have something that resembles a baby or something like that. Now, you might be asking, what if you wanted to give your character some kind of, because right now we're working with the width. What if we're working with the front and the back? You can certainly do that, and it's just a matter of modifying the pillow again. So for instance, if you have this character, I'm just going to do the side view of this. You can actually expand the chest this way, as if he works out. And we have the chicken legs because he doesn't like leg day. And then you have the arms going again in front. For the smaller guy, you could have, let's say, from the side. So these are options that you can explore. For the smaller guy's case, I'm gonna round off the back. For the tall guy, pretty straight, but now I'm gonna round this off. You can do that from the side, so that the legs can fall this way and the arms can go that way. So let's now construct both. Let's start with tall guy. I'm now going to make tall guy face this way. So estimate those proportions. Wide shoulders, narrow hips, head, legs, feet, direction following this axis, then so that's my basic armature. Now for the pillow, so you have the basic pillow right here. Now if I want to expand that, so that's where the contours come in. You would need now to make that adjustment, moving this center line, so we're talking about the center line, forward and down. So that means when I'm coming from the side, this would also have to move up and back. You see that? When it comes to this other side, you would want this other side to be aligned here, because that's, you would want it to make you would want to make it balanced. So if you start here, you go up. When you go down, you have to end where this aligns over here. And going back to the bottom, oh, this is too flat. Pelvic area, sockets for the legs, hate leg day, and let's give him those massive arms because he loves his bench presses and whatever else he does at the gym. Let's volumize that. Now take note, I'm doing a curved arm here. So this is a very cartoony way of doing things. You can certainly do it like this. That's fine as well. It really depends on your design. But if you're going for the cartoony look, Western cartoony look, then that's the curved arm right there. And then level this off, same axis. And there you have your sort of buff character right there. So again, you would need these contours if, let's say, you want to do, if you want to add clothing. So if I want to have him wearing a striped shirt, for instance, then I would follow the contour around the neck for the collar. Then I would use this contour to add a stripe to give that illusion that he has this massive chest coming forward. You might even want to adjust this a little bit. Adjust the pillow a bit so that we really see that prominent chest right there. You can certainly do that. Now for the smaller guy, large head. Now since he has this sort of like whatever it is called, this shape, it's like a blob or a teardrop. Okay, let's call it a teardrop shape. Then you have to work with that contour. So I did not do the armature because I shortcut the process, but if you want to do that, let's do that. So like what I've been saying, if you're used to the process of construction, then you really don't need to do the armature except in special situations. Usually I add an armature if I'm doing a real complex pose. So now that I have that shoulder and hip area, pelvic area, I can now add that teardrop shape. Center line goes front, and now I'm adding the belly right there. Round that, socket for the legs. So here the socket goes around the back and it's not really seen here. I'm gonna enlarge the arm socket, and again the other arm socket can't be seen. Bring this down. Big feet. Arms. And there you go. Now, sometimes you might want to experiment and do something a little more advanced. So I will give another example of how far you can actually push this. Let's say, let's do a human being. And this is the side view. What if I want to do the, let's say this character has a large front. And you have that. So this is side view. So you can imagine this character can be like that frumpy old lady, that kind of thing. So now you have this pillow shaped in a different way, something that we really haven't done before. So when it comes to this, it's now a matter of figuring out, like any other volume, what that looks like as a pillow. So I'm just going to draw that character, and I want to widen the hips as well. So now you're faced with this challenge. You have to satisfy this volume from the side and this from the front. So how do we do that? Let's see how we can accomplish that. Axis facing this way. So now I'm just going to rough out that armature. Follow this. And then it's narrow shoulders, wide hips. Let's lower that a bit. Looks like she has short legs. And then the legs, instead of going straight down, they move this way, they move inward. So that's also a possibility that you can have, as long as the knees face front. So, how now do we do the pillow? So you imagine now that this can be like a spherical type volume. When you look at this from the side, when you look at this from the front and the back, it looks spherical. Same thing with this one, it looks spherical. So it's now a matter of trying to add that sphere on top. Now take note that this part is bigger than this because I want to bring out this part of the character. So this center line moves this way, and then it drops down right there. Boom. See that? It first goes here and then down, So I'm going here and I'm going down. And then this is a sphere that overlaps the top one. So I'm going to eyeball that, making sure that the rear then is a little more prominent than the front. Add those sockets. The socket here can't be seen. Large sockets for the legs. This again is what it looks like from the other side. It can't be seen. So now we have this. So when it comes to figures like these, I mean, you can certainly experiment. You are highly encouraged, in fact, to experiment, especially if you need a character of this shape in your story when you get to MF Drawing 2 and you do your animation pre-production. But, you know, you can always work with the original, do something that is within your capabilities for now. Try to push a bit, but when you do something more experimental like this, if you're not used to this, it's always good, like any other 3D exploration project, to see what that looks like from another angle. If you figure this out from one angle, maybe you can try to figure it out from another angle. So I'm going for the large front. Now the reason that I'm overlapping the head is because I'm looking, the camera is more or less looking upwards. So there's a part of this that's covering the head. It's shielding the head. If the camera is looking this way, then there's a part of this that's covering the head. And that's why I'm covering the head right there. A little more voluminous at the back. And then figure out that front part. And then it goes underneath. We see underneath because we are looking at the character from this direction. Sockets. Again, we can see the sockets because we're looking at it from this direction, and the other socket is around there. Bring that down. We see underneath the foot. And there you have your character. Now you might ask, why didn't I follow this? Why did I do this? Now that's where the eyeballing comes in. Remember, all of these axes, they are reference lines. They are ways for you to establish the direction where things are going to go. In this case, because you know the figure is a bit short, if I extend it up to here, then the legs would be long. So I just had to make a little adjustment. So that's how you work now with body shapes that are different. You can, of course, do from the side, you can do characters that are more bent this way. Like if you have like an old man who has a cane, then it's again figuring out how you're going to do that. Head, bent. This is the center line, and therefore the bend goes towards the back. assuming that this is the axis, and the arm goes front, cane, and then the other arm basically falls to the side. So I'm just going to add the arm right there. So this is now the armature that you're working with, and then you can add now the pillow, same process as you did last time when you were posing your figure. Now that you have an idea of how to construct the body, let's now go into constructing the head. And constructing the head is pretty much the same as constructing any other 3D object. You would have to plan it, you would have to work out the geometry of it, you would have to work out the landmarks, those reference lines, like any other 3D object. And when it comes to the design, it's basically your decision as long as you know how to construct it. So far we've been working with the sphere, and you know that if this is the front view, when we had that sphere, we established that this line, the center line, is essentially where the eyes are going to be. And you can always place the nose there, and you can always place the mouth there. Now, constructing the head generally, or constructing the character in general, when you're working with the actual human body, it's pretty much the same principle. This is just a simplified version. When you're talking about something that's more realistic, then there are a lot more things going on. So just to demonstrate what's going on when you're constructing the human head, in many references, they want to establish the shape of the skull. And the skull is like, once you know the basic construction of the skull, then you can pretty much place anything on it. So generally, when you're constructing the human head, it starts with this oval shape, which is the cranium, or where the brain is, and then that's divided into two. So now we have a head facing this way, and generally what happens is this center line is where the ear is supposed to be, and it goes down, center line. This is now the jawline going here, and then you have the chin. Then you have these reference lines going here, wherein this is where the eyes are going to be, and then this is where the nose is going to be, and this is where the mouth is going to be. And you can add whatever hair you want. The neck extends this way. Now, for those who already know how to draw characters, you've pretty much seen YouTube videos or other references that do this system for constructing the head, and it's pretty much the classical way of constructing the head. But for our purposes, in MF Drawing 1 all the way to MF Drawing 2, we are not going to require you to do this, unless you want to. However, the thing is, when you get to MF Drawing 2 and you start to plan your character design for the animation project in MM2D Annie, you will be encouraged not to make your characters too complex, because you will be drawing those characters again and again, and therefore the more complex the characters you make, the more time you'll be spending drawing them, and maybe you won't be able to finish your animation. So for our purposes, we are going to go simplified, and you get to plan what kind of character design you want. So again, we started with the body. Let's now go to the head. Generally, when it comes to the head, it can be any shape you want. So it can be spherical, you can go oval, you can go more like a mound. This way, you can be more squarish. It depends on you. But what's important is when you have these, since we're doing some kind of humanoid type character, you would need to figure out where those features are. So this is generally, this cross thing, that's generally a rule. It can be higher if you want. It can be lower if you want, as long as you have enough room for the nose and the mouth. And you can pretty much space those features however way you want. So you have a center line for the head where the eyes are going to be, and usually here at the side you would need to place ears. So again, you can place those ears however high or low you want, as long as it still more or less looks human. So that's the front side. Then you have to work on what will the side look like. Because here, if you have an oblong, it can be vertical, wherein the neck goes here, or you can slant it a bit from the side. So if this is the side view, you can have it slanted this way. So it's a decision that you have to make on your own. The next thing that you might want to consider is what will the volume of the nose actually look like? So it can be sort of like a prism shape. So if this is what the nose looks like, when you look at the nose, it's basically this triangle, and you have, the nostrils and so forth and so on. But again, for the purposes of MF Drawing 1, we are not requiring you to learn how to do things realistically. You can do the triangle nose. You can do the, if I'm going to do the teardrop shaped nose, you can do the wide oval nose. You can just do the stump nose. Depends on you. What's important is when you decide what volume you will use for this, for the nose, you will have to treat it like an object, placing it on the head. So, for instance, if let's choose this head. Facing front. Let's say we have the eyes right there. And if you want the nose to be this shape, it's now a decision on how will you express that nose, this shape, on your figure. You can do it this way, pretty much like how, how cartoons would do it. You could do it this way, an upside down T, that works as well. If you're doing, let's say, this teardrop shaped nose, then you could do the whole thing, or you can do partial, depends on you. Now, the tricky thing here would be, what would this look like from the side? So, for this figure, let's say I want to do this vertically. I would be here. The nose would be essentially that. For this figure, then you would have the eye here, and the nose can be this way. The nose, if you want the stump, then it can be this way. So these are things that, you can actually decide upon. There's no right, there's no wrong, as long as you know as long as you know what the volume is and how you can express it in different directions. So let's say that I have, let's go back now to our oval-shaped head, and let's say I want to do the prism nose or the triangular nose and just have my mouth right there and have a couple of ears. From the side, I want it vertical. And the nose would be this way, and the mouth would be here. Now, it's now a decision again if for you this looks a bit weird. Well, for me, it looks a bit weird. So what you might want to do as well is to give this head some kind of chin. We go down and there you go. Excuse me. The ear is usually here in that center line. And when it comes to the hair, again, you have to design it. You have to make sure that when you draw it in one way, like any object, you figure out what it looks like from other angles. So if I have a hair that looks like this, treating this as a separate volume, then if this is on top of the eye, then that would be up there, and that is where that angle is going to be. You can further extend this down, so you got some kind of sideburns going, in which case it'll be more like this. Let's now go for quarter view. Okay, the quarter view. When it comes to the quarter view, let's look at this figure from the top in order for us to figure out how to draw it in quarter view. So this is the top. Ears are vertical. I mean, looking from the top as well. Your nose, since we decided on the triangular nose, it would go this way, and the eyes would be this right here. Now, these are aligned. So, if I'm going to do a quarter view of this, wherein it's now 45 degrees, how now do you make that in 3D? So let's do the quarter view from the top. Now, center goes here. So I'm now going to express this in quarter view. So remember that this line corresponds to this line, center, because here's the eyes. This line across the ear is this one. So let's now plot this on our head. Here's the ear. We go down. And that's where this ear is going to be in quarter view. This is the center line across the head. It goes here. So we now go down. And this is where essentially the nose is supposed to be. Eyes go down. The other eye goes down. And mouth here. This corner is above the eye. And now you have that quarter view. Now, of course, you can again eyeball this, make a good estimate, but if you're not sure yet, try and plot it out using this method, and then just memorize it. Memorize the result, bring it into your visual library, so you don't need to do this because you've memorized it. Let's now have another example. This time I want the head to be more like a dome shape. So you have a dome shape. And when you have a dome-shaped head, usually you don't have a neck. So when you do the pillow, it just attaches right there. So that's where the pillow is. So front view, establish where you want to place those eyes and the nose and the mouth. Let's say I want my eyes to be more sort of like a googly-eyed thing. And maybe I could add some eyebrows. Then I want that button nose. And then maybe I'm gonna add some kind of chin. Ear. And for the hair, maybe I just want to give him a tufty top. Something like that. Let's now go to the side. Dome shape, I want the back to be rounded as well. Eyeline. When you go for the side view of this, if it's the side, then it would look like this. Or you could, in true cartoon fashion, also make it circular. Okay? If you want to do the whole cartoony thing. Of course, you can do it this way. That's also acceptable. Nose, just a button nose right there. And for the chin, you might want to add just a bit of chin there. And that's where the body begins. Ear can be here, center. And then we have the tufty hair going that way. Now, of course, when it comes to questions like what should the eye look like, what if I want to do lips, you can certainly do lips. This is all very pretty much your decision. You can do this shape of eye with a little anime glittery thing inside. You can do the squarish type eye. You can do the bushy eyebrows. It really depends on you. So this is where you have more or less the freedom to decide what you want to do. But of course, everything will be based on the story that you want to make. And the story part, that will happen again in MF Drawing 2. Our goal right now, at least for MF Drawing 1, is for you to decide on any kind of head design, body design, put them together, and then just make sure you know how to construct it so that when you need to draw this head in a certain direction, you would know what to do. So if I'm going to do that sphere from another angle, let's say this is looking up, then you know more or less how to do that in 3D. So for this guy, looking up, see that the nose overlaps the eye. So again, that's taking note of the fact that we are working with three-dimensional components here. So the position of the nose would warrant that the eye is obscured a bit. So try it out, have fun with it. If there's something that you can't figure out in 3D, then try first another shape that's easier and then work your way up. What's important again is whatever you decide your design will be, you can draw it in other directions.